Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit, where engines meet energy geopolitics. In 2024, the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion gave Canadian oil a direct route to Asia. But then came a curveball. President Trump proposed a 10% tariff on Canadian oil and gas. That's when China's Rongsheng petrochemical swooped in, opening a Calgary office and sealing a crude deal with Suncor. What looked like a trade footnote could mark a massive powertrain shift in global energy. Buckle up. We're diving into the pivotal moves reshaping the fuel game. Number 1. China's foot on the gas. Rongsheng's Canadian Playbook. Rongsheng Petrochemical, the refinery powerhouse cranking through 800,000 barrels per day, just set its sights on North America, and Calgary is now home to their newest command post. In the midst of rising tensions between Ottawa and Washington, Rongsheng moved in while others hesitated. Their debut move? A crude oil supply deal with Suncor, one of Canada's top energy players. The first shipments already locked in for a June arrival in China. But don't mistake this for a one and done. Rongsheng's forming bonds with heavyweights like Cenovus, Canadian Natural Resources, BP, Shell, and ConocoPhillips. The real kicker? These aren't standard deals. Rongsheng is leaning on FOB, free on-board contracts, giving them flexibility to reroute cargo on the fly. Translation, they're not just buying oil, they're steering the tanker. Leading this energy offensive is Wang Jie, an oil veteran who previously launched PetroChina's Canadian trading arm. With him at the helm, Rongsheng isn't testing the waters. They're diving deep into Canada's energy sector, engine roaring. And speaking of big moves, this wouldn't be possible without a major shift in infrastructure. Let's look under the hood of Canada's game-changing pipeline project. Number 2. Trans Mountain Expansion, Canada's oil highway to the east. The heart of this entire energy pivot is the Trans Mountain Expansion, TMX, project. Finished in early 2024, TMX has tripled its capacity, from 300,000 to a hefty 890,000 barrels per day. Spanning nearly 1,200 kilometers from Alberta to the Pacific coast of British Columbia, this pipeline finally puts Asia within arm's reach for Canadian producers. For decades, Canada was locked into one major customer, the US. Over 95% of its crude exports headed south. That over-reliance made Ottawa vulnerable to pricing, policy changes, and, now, tariffs. But TMX changes the game. With direct access to ports, Canadian producers can now send oil straight to China, Japan, and South Korea. All countries that favor Canada's heavy, sour crude, which suits their refinery setups like a glove. Yes, there was pushback. Environmental groups and some indigenous communities voiced concerns about ecological risks and consultation gaps. But the federal government, which bought TMX from Kinder Morgan in 2018, pumped billions into the project and pressed forward. And now, that pipeline is live and loud, a new superhighway for oil, rewriting Canada's global logistics playbook. But infrastructure is just one part of the equation. Policy shifts and tariff threats have forced Canada to recalculate its entire export strategy. Let's talk about the pivot to Asia. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. Now, let's shift gears and steer towards our next point. Number 3. Canada Recalculates, from US Reliance to Asian acceleration. Why is Canada warming up to Asia? One word: tariffs. The Trump administration's threat of a 10% tax on Canadian oil and gas wasn't just policy, it was a wake-up call. In 2024, Canada exported roughly 176.2 billion Canadian dollars in energy, with a staggering 97% going to the US. That kind of reliance left Ottawa exposed. The response? Diversify, and fast. The federal government launched a $6.5 billion support plan, with $5 billion helping exporters tap into global markets and $1 billion aimed at agriculture. But industry leaders didn't wait. With the TMX pipeline now operational, Chinese refiners like Rongsheng are lining up as consistent buyers. Natural gas is joining the action too. LNG Canada is on track for exports by late 2025, cracking open new trade lanes to Asia's booming energy markets. Politicians across party lines are backing the shift. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is reviving shelved projects like Energy East and Northern Gateway, while Prime Minister Mark Carney is eyeing Arctic-bound routes to reach European demand. The message is clear. Canada's energy future is no longer hitched solely to the US. It's shifting into high gear on the global stage. And while Canada shifts gears globally, tensions across North America are heating up. Let's break down the trade pressure and power plays at work. Number 4. Energy as leverage. North America's oil tug-of-war. Canada's growing energy ties with China come as North American trade faces mounting pressure. Tariffs, political posturing, and tit-for-tat measures have turned oil into a strategic asset, not just a commodity. For years, U.S. refineries, especially along the Gulf Coast and in the Midwest, depended on Canada's heavy crude, importing nearly 4 million barrels per day. But Trump's tariff threats could put that supply in jeopardy. Canadian officials warn U.S. gas prices could jump by 75 cents per gallon if barriers hit, forcing American refineries to scramble for more expensive alternatives, with ripple effects across the economy. Ironically, while Canada and China clash over EVs, steel, and agriculture, oil remains untouched by sanctions. It's simply too crucial to both economies. Crude has become a rare neutral zone in an otherwise tense relationship, and business is booming. In 2024, China ramped up its Canadian crude imports by 22%, reaching 184,000 barrels per day. With LNG projects ramping up and new trade channels forming, Canada is repositioning itself not just as a supplier to the US, but as a rising global energy player, balancing business with geopolitical chess. But oil isn't Canada's only ace. Let's shift to the next power player in this evolving energy portfolio: natural gas. Number 5. LNG and beyond, Canada's next energy chapter. If oil is the headliner, natural gas is Canada's breakout act. The LNG Canada mega project, anchored in Kitimat, British Columbia, is revving up to ship its first exports by late 2025. Backed by a powerhouse alliance including Shell and PetroChina, the project is Canada's big-ticket entry into Asia's rapidly growing gas markets. Right now, Canada exports nearly 8.6 billion cubic feet of natural gas daily, almost all of it to the US. But that's about to change. With LNG Canada in the pipeline, pun intended, and other potential projects aimed at Arctic and Atlantic routes, Canada is finally gearing up to serve global markets on its own terms. And it's not just fossil fuels. Quietly but powerfully, Canada's hydroelectric provinces, think Quebec, Ontario, and BC, exported over 40 terawatt-hours of clean electricity to the US in 2024. That's enough juice to power millions of homes. This positions Canada as not just a seller of oil and gas, but a diversified energy leader across the board. Zooming out, this all plays into a bigger picture: the Indo-Pacific, with its $47.9 trillion economy and over 4 billion people. Canada is eyeing more than short-term deals. It's laying down an energy blueprint for a post-American trade model. And now, let's hit the final stretch, where all these shifts converge into a new global energy map. Final gear, the global rewire of Canadian energy. This isn't just about oil deals or new pipelines, it's a global energy realignment. With Rongsheng planting roots in Calgary, TMX pumping westward, and LNG gearing up for export, Canada is shifting from sidekick to frontrunner in the energy world. The US may soon face pricier barrels, while Asia gains a dependable supplier. Canada, it's playing to win. So let's hear from you. Is Canada truly ready to go global with energy? Will China overtake the US as its top customer? Are tariffs helping or hurting these partnerships? Can LNG become Canada's long-term energy ace? How should Canada balance energy ambition with environmental duty? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Piston Pundit for more updates, deep dives, and industry insights. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and stay fueled. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.